Welcome, welcome, welcome to the July 2021 theme in Surrender to Remember portal, which is self-love, trusting, surrendering, and remembering you. So what I've done for this reading, just taking the oracle, which I love working with the oracle to dive into what Spirit has to say in regards to each theme of each month, because we're working with a specific theme each month. And so I asked the questions a little bit differently depending on what month it is. This month I asked, how can we support our process of trusting? So this column is trusting, surrendering, and remembering more of our essence of, we could call it our life's purpose, our mission here. But really remembering who we are at the core, which is we are all of the same source energy, but there's different levels of this when we talk about remembering, trusting, remembering, and surrendering to us, especially in regards to self-love, because there is the part of us that is oneness, but we came here to have the experience of the separation. And so there's so many levels to this return to self-love, and I'm going to talk about it more in terms of, they'll definitely be touching on the oneness and getting down to the essence of who we are, that unconditional love. But I am going to talk more in regards to remembering our humanness and remembering that we chose this human experience, remembering that if there wasn't the separation, if there wasn't the experimentation of the entire range of emotions, if there wasn't the chaos, if there wasn't the fear, if there wasn't the drama, we wouldn't actually get the experience that we came here for, which is to evolve and learn from all of that. So we chose to condition ourselves in a very specific way at a certain level of consciousness. We chose to forget a lot about what comes with being connected and in oneness. We chose to forget a lot of those gifts, if you will, perspectives. We chose to forget the consistent connection with unconditional love so that we could, through our experiences, through the development of our ego, through the experience of our hardships, our challenges, our traumas, begin to remember who we are and what we came here to do. And I do believe that each of us chose a certain quote unquote mission, a certain maybe group of emotions to experiment, maybe more than others, a certain trauma to experience, for example, that would give us, and conditioning that would give us a certain setup to be able to unwind and see all the beauty in the dynamic diversity of emotions that are involved in that growth process. So let's get into the reading. You are probably going to hear me turning on and off my air. I'm in Baja California and it's really, really hot today. So if you hear the little beeps, that's what that is. So I started with the overall, kind of like just like feeling into the energy, asking the question, how do we break the cycle of resistance, and how do we sink more into this process of trusting, remembering, and surrendering to who we are, so that we can develop more self-love and self-respect and feel more connected to our essence and our spirit and feel more whole, essentially, and more healed. So the first card that came up was Beyond the Mind. It's such a beautiful reminder to, we can intellectualize and stay at the mental level, but we really do need to use it as a tool and not as the only place where we get try and figure things out, right? We have to get into the experience on a somatic level of what what this process is of remembering who we are. So I'll just read a little bit about it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Just, going beyond the mind, thinking with the heart, learning the ways in which our heart speaks to us. Jessica gave an amazing, in her live session this month, we did an amazing meditation with the crystals, learning how to tap into our intuition and our, trusting our sensations, our channeling abilities, trusting our connection to spirit, and that what comes through in the way it comes through for you is real. It's going into our imagination, that's going into our subconscious. So going beyond the mind, of course, using our mind as a tool, but not as the only reservoir we have to gather information. So thinking with your heart, what is the language of your heart? How does your heart communicate with you? Being very, slow down. Let's all slow down and start to listen more. That theme comes up so much in this process or in this reading. Being more present, connecting the heart and mind and having them work in collaboration versus depending always on the mind or it should really be, in my interpretation and my practices of learning more of the surrender process, of this opening up, learning more about what is in my conscious, integrating more of me back into wholeness and back into a more healed person. It does tend to be for me that the heart has so much more impact and influence over the mind. They work together beautifully. And this is a practice of learning how and what that methodology is for you. This card suggests meditation, talks about the bliss of being, quieting the monkey mind, fathoming the unfathomable. That's like that art of contemplation, finding happiness within, and going beyond intellectual limitation. Okay, enough about that. And this is kind of just like the first indication of how to open this process up to begin trusting, remembering, and trusting, surrendering, and remembering more of that innate self-love. And then the ether card came up as in terms of what the gift is in all of this when we actually do the work, do these practices, become more familiar with this reconnecting with self-love and practices of self-love as a ritual, essentially, as a way of being, as a way of just being in life in everything that we do. And the ether card came up, which is just the ultimate expression of the pause, the space in between spaces, the infinite realm of possibilities, the everything and nothing at all. This is where we go with this, is because we can't even fathom or imagine what we really truly are. So the more we push ourselves to have experiences of what that feels like, again, going back to the plant medicine ceremonies, this happens often, is like getting glimpses of that infinite oneness, infinite possibilities, this realm where we all have access to. We chose to come to the 3D and forget how to have constant access to that realm. But when you do more of these practices that remind you of the magic of being present, of the magic of the beingness, of the, not doing so much, not achieving so much, but just the beauty of being and loving you for the purpose of being in this experience, that's when you get glimpses of this infinite possibility, this magic, this wonder, the ethers, the seamless unspeakable it talks about. So that's exciting. We're not meant to be in a human body having that experience all the time. That's where we come from. But connecting with this ether, having those glimpses of what's possible, allows us to co-create and produce, and we'll create is a good word, these lives that we want to create, the magic that we want to play with here. Manifesting the love of your life and having this beautiful love story, if that's what you desire. Manifesting vacation, travel. Maybe it's deepening your relationships on a level that you didn't know possible. having the best orgasms of your life, manifesting money to have all of the security and the prosperity that allows you to do the things that you want to do. So all of these things is kind of always in the back of our mind of why we're doing what we're doing, and remembering who we are and continuously loving ourselves is so that we can create these lives full of freedom, full of opportunity, full of passion, fun, joy. All right, so let's get into these cards. Trusting. What can support us in being able to trust this path, who we are, what we came here to do? The unseen card came up, which is just what it says. It's about remembering, remembering the unconscious part of us. So trusting that the answers are there, but often we do need to go on this journey to discover more of what is beyond just our consciousness, our rational thinking. So it talks about the spirit, the ancestor, the eternal. So the trusting part, this ancestral theme is coming up, which I love, because when we do meditate with, why did we pick? I'm talking about the workshop because I did the workshop around, how we constructed our conditioning, how we actually chose that on a soul level so that we would have the experiences we had, which often involved hardships and trauma and challenge, so that we could learn the lessons we did. So trusting, when you're pondering those kind of questions, like, why did I choose parents that did this to me? Why did I choose to incarnate in a culture that had this limited perspective on things? Why did I choose to be the black sheep in my family? So trusting that all the answers are there. It's just behind the curtains. We can't see it, but it sees us, and it's constantly calling for us. That's why we're on this journey. We have this calling, we have this feeling in us that there's more to discover, that there's more to find out about ourselves and life and the universe, and why we're here on this planet. So the unseen, that's a great energy just in terms of remembering how to trust this process. Call on your intuition, meditate with your guides, meditate with crystals, again, like Jessica did in her session. Really trust that what you hear, see, think, experience, maybe in your dream time, in relation to your loved ones, your friends, just even interactions in your day, that it's all teaching you something from this place of the unseen. And so trusting yourself, trusting your instincts, trusting your intuition, it's a practice. The more you do that, the more fluid it will become. And the quicker you begin to integrate the lessons that you're learning, essentially. The ghost dance is all about reminding us that our ancestors are here to support us. So trusting that, you did choose this life. You are responsible for what you're experiencing. You are responsible for attracting the things, everything in your life that's happening for a reason. So what is that reason? Just trusting that, there is a plan, even if it doesn't make sense. When we can really surrender to that, that's when we gain confidence. That's when we gain a sense of power. That's when we gain more respect for ourselves. The self-love begins to rise up from the place where we may not have been able to access it by surrendering to these processes. And then the polar bear comes up as our spirit guide in this process of trusting. The polar bear says, stand up for yourself, speak your truth respectfully and compassionately with no attachment to the outcome. So again, power, that to me speaks very much of power, not being afraid to say what you think, feel, and hear, trusting that it will be received because it's your truth. All right, so that's all about the process of trusting. Now we go to the process of surrendering. I like this. It's kind of like, I also talk in the workshop about the process of of conscious evolution in terms of waking up. Step number 1. Number 2 is cleaning up. And step number 3 is showing up. And this is kind of, I just realized it in this moment, this is kind of a good mirror of that. So the trusting is the waking up part, waking up what's in the unseen, the unconscious, trusting that what you're getting messages about is absolutely the truth and absolutely coming up to help you in your process of this return to self-love. And then cleaning up is like the surrender part. We have to surrender ourselves to do the work that is required to wake up, to actually fortify and integrate the things that we're seeing as we begin to wake up. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So the process of surrendering to yourself, to life, and really just surrendering to the process of it all is the way to return to love, to return to that remembrance, deep remembrance of who you are. So the self card comes up and it talks about, as you can see with the prisms that it represents, or that it has on the visual, it represents all aspects of ourselves. Again, in the workshop, I talk about parts and fragmentation. We have so many parts of our consciousness that are real. Everything is real. The part of you that is lonely is real. The part of you that is happy is real. The part of you that is in self-doubt is real. The part of you that absolutely loves the heck out of you is real. So there's all of these parts of us make up our whole. Now, when we go to make changes or transformations or go in to heal things in our life, it's about seeing all these parts, accepting them, loving, know that they're all the self. It's not just one of these parts doesn't make us up. So this is like the whole entire ego, everything we identify with as quote unquote who we are. So the self card comes up to help remind us to surrender to this process. And I love it because it's like, yeah, surrender to it all. Recognize all these parts of you, be the witness, be the watcher, have that one foot in both worlds, have one foot in the soul world, seeing everything happening from a higher perspective, and then also just honor your human experience and know that you're going to wear many masks throughout your life. You're going to, be 1,000 billion different people in any given moment, because that's what we do here on the human, as humans on the 3D plane, is we experiment with different ways of being, with different personality traits, and we choose the ones. So going down to this process of surrendering, the root chakra, stay grounded, being able to see all of these parts of you and honoring and observe yourself as you navigate the world with compassion, with love. Stay grounded in your experience. So this could very well be pointing to actual grounding practices if it's overwhelming to see all of these parts of you and kind of hold them all. I always have to bring myself to certain grounding practices. So that can be a breath practice. I think that's the simplest thing to bring you back to the present moment and just remind yourself that you're okay, that you're safe. I like to remind myself that, this is an illusion, but I'm here to live it. And so I surrender to the process with all of my feelings, with all of my heart, with all of the energy that needs to move, knowing that on a soul level, I'm actually growing and becoming more integrated and whole in this process. But staying grounded in your human experience, absolutely. Honor everything that comes up, and just see it for what it is. The seer reminds you that, see all of this. Just like I said, I'm kind of repeating myself, but the seer reminds you that you can see the truth. You always have the ability to see the truth. So pick the parts of you that you want to amplify, and don't push the parts away that you don't necessarily love or want to change. Honor them too, but offer them the healing of, I see you, I witness you, you're no longer necessary. I no longer need to be guarded from love, for example. I no longer need to defend myself with anger. I think there's a more compassionate way. So seeing where you can add more grace into the equation, where you can be more compassionate and understanding of yourself in this process, and just having that wide wide scope, wide perspective is such a part of the surrendering process. And then when you're in it, just let yourself go. Let yourself be the one who sinks to the bottom of the ocean, because you know that it will pass and that you will surface and be more whole and integrated and healed as a result. And then the unicorn comes up as the animal totem for the surrendering process, which I love. It just reminds us to be playful, creative, use our imagination to do this work as well. It says, indulge your creative, imaginative, and magical side through some form of artistic expression. So express yourself, move, surrender to your body, surrender to these movement of emotions, maybe go through the catharsis exercises, dancing, moving your body through exercise, if that's artistic expression, but it's just moving these energy, experimenting with all of the rainbow of the parts of ourselves that we have learned to be through our conditioning, through our process of evolution. And cleaning up. So next we move to the remembering, the word of remembering, the topic of remembering, actually remembering. So this to me is like really the showing up part. Like this is like, okay, I've seen what's possible. I've seen what's in the subconscious. I surrender to experimenting with it all because it's all me and I love it all, honoring that whole process. And then this remembrance, it's a journey. It's not just we're gonna practice this in July of 2021. Remembering is a whole journey. That the pilgrimage card came up. Not much I need to say about that. The pilgrim goes on a quest, goes on a journey of self-discovery. So this is a journey inwards, and it's always about going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper within. So the Divine Feminine card comes up to remind us to go with the flow, receive, listen, nurture, remember to be kind with yourself. This is a long, long, long process, and we've got to be kind and loving and, holding ourselves in the highest regard for the processes that we're in, really giving ourselves compassion, even in those moments when you're not proud, you do something that you're not proud of, and don't punish yourself. Just recognize it as a part of who you are. Surrender to the knowing that it's just an aspect of you that wants to come up, that served you at one time, was created for a very good reason, trying to see the beauty and the lesson in it. That's always an important part of the integration when we're on this remembering path, especially a return to remembering who we are and really loving ourselves for all of it, is about honoring the process and I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit, sorry, and listening. I know what I was going to say. An important part of the integration piece is really taking a moment, whether it's in writing or talking it out loud with a coach or your friend or even yourself, but taking that moment to anchor in the lesson. What is it that you learned from the disagreement, the drama that you experienced? There's always a lesson in it. So I don't want us to forget this really important part of receiving, this Divine Feminine, receiving the message of every experience that we live in this process of remembering. So when you anchor in the gifts, that's kind of like close to the quote unquote completion process of closing that lesson and learning that lesson and integrating that lesson. So be receptive, be listening, be kind with yourself in this process. The medicine wheel comes up, which I was a little bit confused about in the beginning. But the medicine wheel in regards to remembering, let me bring it up and I'll read a little bit about what it says. It represents the 4 elements. So that part wasn't confusing to me. The part, I'll get to why I was a little bit confused and then why I'm not so confused anymore. But the medicine wheel, it represents the 4 directions, the 4 elements, all very, very important anchoring tools that you can bring into your rituals, your practices, your process all the time and anytime, to help you remember, to help you on this journey, on this pilgrimage. And it's in the reverse position, which is actually calling out like an urgency. So it's calling out this urgency to move forward and to do the work. So this month is, according to the reading, it is a time of action. And it's not always about a time of action, especially when it came up with the Divine Feminine card. I was kind of like, okay, it kind of threw me off a little bit, but it is bringing up this urgency to heal. We're all here doing this already. So maybe just check in with yourself, do a quick inventory. What walls are you continuing to run up against, and what can you tweak to either soften that, or maybe even just put it down for a while and go a different direction in your healing process? Like if you really can't figure something out, obviously the very first card is like getting beyond the mind and more in the heart. But if you really are having a lot of frustration, maybe it's time to put that lesson down and move on to the next thing. I know in here we're like overachievers, we're spiritual overachievers. I'm not against that. I'm absolutely obsessed with this consciousness evolution ordeal and doing everything I can to learn more about how I can essentially improve as a human being and learn the lessons my soul came here to do. But sometimes we can forget that it is also about the journey and to have fun. So maybe it's about adding more fun. This card calls out to find more inner strength to step into the medicine wheel. So where can you deepen your practices? Where can you have a little bit more discipline perhaps? Or if you are overdoing it and coming up against these walls, perhaps it's a call to relax a little bit more. And then the action card for the process of remembering I love is the spider. So this is, we all have to, I believe, once we wake up, do a certain amount of cleaning up and start to show up, this is when we express what we've learned in the world. Obvious example, if you feel the urge or the desire to teach, this is when you express what you've learned to humanity, to the people that you want to serve. This doesn't have to be about doing this as a vocation by any means. This can simply be expressing yourself in a way that feels like you integrate it by the act of expression. It makes sense, if you really want to integrate something, if you really want to express this love you have for someone, for example, and you paint a beautiful picture. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a professional artist to do this. You get out some colors and you interpret that in a different way. Or say you want to experiment with sound and take it on a vibrational level and express that energy on a vibrational level. So this is really a call to anchoring in this process of integration and self-love and the things that we're learning that are returning us, helping us return to where we came from, which is unconditional love. There is really this action piece of expressing ourselves in the world. That is essentially what showing up is walking the walk, talking the talk. And there's a big call to exploring different avenues of expressing ourselves. So I'll just call it creativity. Maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's writing, maybe it's starting a business. Maybe it's even just having conversations in a different way. Maybe that's joining more women's groups or men's groups or co-ed groups and having conversations that are intriguing to you about the spiritual path and your own evolution. So it could be a whole number of things, but I think it's kind of really calling us to look outside the box and do a little bit more just to allow what we're learning in terms of what we find when we go inside, and how can we start to express that so that it becomes more quote unquote tangible or real, and anchors us more into the wholeness, the healing that is happening in this entire process. Enjoy your month, everybody, of self-love, trusting, surrendering, and remembering you. Such a beautiful theme. I love you all so much, and I will see you in the portal.